What's up, YouTube? It's your PJ Hoop back in another video, and I'm talking about some of the best players in the NBA. You know, right now the NBA is extremely talented. Every team has something to look forward to every night, whether it's someone or something. Whether it be the reigning championship Golden State Warriors trying to go back to back, or the Indiana Pacers with Tyrese Halliburton as a young star guard. All 30 teams have something fun, so I thought that's something fun to do as well. I'm going to rank the top 50 players of the NBA. I thought about doing top 100, but at the 100 mark, get like role players, high level role players, of course. But top 50 are all star level players. You can argue all of them could be an all-star. I think all of them are really great players. So I want to do that right now. They're going to be in tiers. I believe it's 6 or 7 tiers. So the number is not as important as the actual tier itself, but the number does have some merit to it. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe before getting into the vid. Now let's go to the list. So there are 7 tiers. I have 52 players in my 50 player list, but tier 7 is not exactly what you think. I believe Jalen Green, Scottie Barnes, and Evan Mobley will all be top 50 players this season. So I want to put them as a tier like they'd be around where I have Cade Cunningham in my top 50. Quick spoiler warning. But I can't put them there quite yet. However, I do think they will be there. And they're kind of my tier 7, although they're not exactly a tier on its own because they're not in the top 50 list. With that being said, let's get into the list. So at 52, I have DeAndre Ayton. At 51, I have Marcus Smart. At 50, I have Klay Thompson. 49, Jordan Poole. 48, Draymond Green. 47, Lonzo Ball. So that's my tier 6, and I want to explain why each player is in that tier. First of all, DeAndre Ayton, obviously he didn't make top 50. I think he's amazing. I think another team, if he was utilized better, he'd be a lot higher. But with the role he has on the Suns, I can't put him that much higher than anybody else that I have right there. I think that he can be, obviously, as I just said. But what he can do, like his offensive upside is there. Like he can hit threes, like occasionally we saw in the Pelican series. He has some post moves, but he's more like a high-level center, like role player center. I think he'd be a lot more. For Marcus Smart, he defensive player of the year. He did good in the finals, although not amazing. Honestly, any lower than this kind of disrespectful. I think right here, I don't love that someone who just won defensive player of the year is so low, but he's limited offensively, as a lot of players at this level have some key weaknesses. He is one of them. At 50, the actual top 50, Klay Thompson. I think the thing about Klay is that you could argue there are people that aren't on this list that are more consistent. Like their medium is better than his medium. Like Klay can have horrible games and amazing games. But the thing is, his amazing games are like top 25 level. He just has those bad games as well. So I didn't know where to rank him exactly, so I have to put him 50 because I think he can be amazing, but he can also not be amazing. So I think it's a good spot for him. 49, I have Jordan Poole. The thing about Jordan Poole is I think him and Klay are similar tiers of players at this point in their career. What Jordan Poole did against the Nuggets is absolutely insane. No matter who was playing on the court, that was ridiculous. The first 2 rounds he was really good. He slowed down a bit around 3 and 4, but he is a young player. You can let that go a bit. And this is also predicting like kind of going to next season and kind of not, because I mentioned I have Jalen Green, Evan Mobley, Scottie Barnes. They will be there, and I don't have them on the list right now. So I don't know how I should phrase this. Like I'm heading into the season with some predictions, but also from the what we saw last season as well. But anyways, Jordan Poole is 49. I think with his young offensive capabilities are amazing. He's like a little Stephen Curry, although comparing him to Steph Curry is not the best thing because Steph Curry is like top 10 player of all time. But Jordan Poole is definitely up there. At 48, I have Draymond Green. I think the thing about Draymond is, I don't know. I'm a Warriors fan, so I watch pretty much every Warriors game. And I have mixed feelings about him. He's a great defensive player. Like all his defensive stats and field goal percentage of players when they're guarded by him are ridiculously lower. Like you have to give him his respect. He was on Defensive Player of the Year track before he got injured. I think the thing about Draymond is that his offense is just so bad that sometimes you forget what else he does. Like he got played off the court. I think it was Game 4. Game 4 he got played off the court because he couldn't score. Like, how are you making $25 million and you can't play in the final minutes because you're so limited offensively? And I think because of that, he has to be this low. No matter his defensive impact, in today's NBA, offense is definitely greater than offense is definitely better than defense, greater than defense. So because of that, he's right there. In front of him, I have Lonzo Ball. I just think Lonzo's a better player. Like I'd take Lonzo over him. Oh, that's how I want to say it. Players I'd take before the other players. So if they're higher, I'd rather take them on a team. So Lonzo Ball, he's an amazing 3-and-D player. He can push the pace, and he's a great passer. And the last player, he's the last player in that tier. So that's tier 6 for you. All right, now we have tier 5. The start of tier 5, I have Tyrese Maxey. So before I saw he did this offseason, and before he had that playoff run, maybe he wouldn't be here. But his playoff run was amazing. His first time as a starter in the playoffs, obviously he played against the Hawks in that historical series that messed up the franchise a bit with Ben Simmons not taking that level over Trae Young. But anyways, after seeing the work he's doing this summer and what he did in the playoffs, I have to have him this high. I think he is a tier above the players I mentioned before, or else he wouldn't be in this tier. I think I'd take him over all of them without hesitation because the upside he showed, like his quickness, his finishing, he can shoot amazingly. Like his improvement from year 1 and 2 in shooting, really everything, but especially shooting and especially corner 3 shooting is absolutely insane. You have to take Tyrese Maxey. At 45, I have Desmond Bane, another player I'd take over all the other players. non-brainly. Now, him being above Tyrese Maxey, I think was difficult for me. What Bane did against the Timberwolves series obviously makes him right there. What he did against the Warriors obviously makes him more questionable. I think the thing is he was injured in that series, so I'm going to go when he was healthy, and I'm taking Desmond Bane over him. After that, I have Cade Cunningham. I think this is the first surprise pick. I've mentioned that Jalen Green, Evan Mobley, Scotty Barnes, all in a similar tier as him, but I actually put Cade on the list because right now I take Cade over all those players. Obviously, he had a slow start to the season. He was injured to start the season. He didn't have his training camp. So people are going to look at his efficiency. And fair enough. But some people say numbers are just numbers. If you actually watch the games, he has so much attention on him defensively. Such a bad roster. He was getting double teamed at half court by the number one defensive league, the Boston Celtics. He's a really good player. His defense is really good. I think this Cade Cunningham is better than all those people. And I think he's going to continue to get better. And eventually a top 10 player in the NBA. At 43, I have Domantas Sabonis. The thing is, though, with all that being said, I'm still taking Domantas over him. Domantas is a really good player, amazing post player. He can play make. I don't watch enough Kings and Pacers to know if he's good on defense. But the little I do watch, he's not horrible, but he's not all over the fence. Number 42, I have Andrew Wiggins. What he did in the finals, this playoff run, really ridiculous. His rebounding amazing. His 3-point shooting, it was there. He could get a bucket, that mid-range pull-up. I really love what he did this whole playoff run. He was a key piece for the Warriors getting the championship. You have to respect what he did. And he's definitely a tier above Draymond, Poole, and Klay. He's the second best player on the Warriors. Obviously, number one. Make it a lot higher up on this list. At 41, I have DeJounte Murray. This is something where I wrestle with making this list. So the thing about DeJounte Murray is De'Aaron Fox is a little bit higher than him. And I think the two of them are comparable level players. But there's a player in between them where it's I'm picking this player over DeJounte, but not over Fox. So I had to put DeJounte a little bit lower than I think I would have wanted to. All 40 players I have above him, I think I would 100% take them over him if I was building a team. And that's not really a bad thing with how talented NBA is. Him being 41 is not that bad at all. I think he's an amazing player, and he definitely will have better numbers than some of the people above him. But I his offensive limitations are something that I can't get over. He got average 20 points a game, so I'm not dumb. But the way he did it, I don't know. It's not what you want from your star guard and your star scorer. At 40, I have Jaren Jackson Jr. Now the thing is, this is the player I was talking about. They're obviously one apart above DeJounte Murray. I think if you're building a team, you pick Jaren Jackson Jr. If you know nothing about it. If you know some things about it, maybe you take DeJounte Murray. But if you know nothing about it, you're going to take a 3-and-D center with someone with some finishing chops as well and some playmaking for his size. Although, granted, not amazing, but if you watch, he has some playmaking upside. The issue is his foul trouble, but we're taking the best version of these players. I'm taking Jaren Jackson Jr. over DeJounte Murray. And that is the end of Tier 5, actually. So, now it's time for Tier 4. So now we have Tier 4. Tier 4 is the smallest remaining tier, mostly because a lot of these players were I was arguing Tier 3, but there's definitely a cutoff point in talent between them and Tier 3. Although they are amazing, I feel they're just not superstar or superstar level potential. That's not true. They're not superstar level. You could argue the other tiers are all low level all NBA players to superstars, and these is a tier I don't think you could argue they're low level NBA. They're just all star to high all star in my opinion. So 39, I have De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox is an amazing player. I think he had a down year for him because 2 seasons ago he had an amazing season. He was arguably top 30. He was amazing. The thing is, he was a top finisher this year, percentile wise, with the bottom level percentile spacing, and they fixed the spacing this offseason. So I can't wait to see what he does. I think my mic cut out, but I can't wait to see what he does. He's going to be amazing. Him and Domantas Sabonis with another season. Keegan Murray. I'm excited for De'Aaron Fox, and I'm excited for the Kings, which is such an odd sentence to say. But at 30, I have CJ McCollum. What he did in this playoff run was incredible. I think I'll take CJ over De'Aaron Fox because of his shooting ability. Although they're both great playmakers, and De'Aaron Fox is a much better finisher. I think for a star guard, I want shooting a little bit more and shot creation, mid-range creation. Out of the pick and roll, being able to take a mid-range comfortably, I take CJ over him. Just what he did to the Suns was amazing. He had a few off games, but overall, give me CJ. At 37, I have Jrue Holiday. I think the thing between Jrue Holiday and CJ is Drew's defense while being still a great offensive player. Obviously not CJ level, but I think their offensive defense, difference between offense, let me just show you with my hand. This is CJ's offense, and this is Drew's offense. This is Drew's defense, and that's CJ's defense. So because of the difference, I'm going to take Jrue Holiday because of that. At 36, I have Chris Paul. I'll be honest, I'm a Chris Paul hater, really a Suns hater. So having Chris Paul this low, it has nothing to do with me being a hater, though. He's just not better than the other 35 players. If you're building a team, you're not taking him over any of them, I'll be honest with you. I do it this playoff runs, he's getting up there in age. Obviously, Father Time gets everybody. It's not his fault he's getting older. But there's some people who aren't getting older and who are just going to get better and better each season. 35 out of Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal is amazing. I mean, people say empty stats, and I'm like, that doesn't exist, except for Bradley Beal. Now, obviously, to get all those points, you should score on an NBA level defender, but it doesn't matter because you aren't winning, which is hypocritical. Because people said Trae Young had empty stats, and I said, well, that's not true. For Bradley Beal, I think he's a special case where empty stats do exist. And I'm not a huge Bradley Beal fan, although I'm not a hater. His bucket getting ability gets him this high, but higher than anybody else, I just can't do. It's not as impactful in my opinion. I know I'm probably going to contradict myself a lot in this video. I probably have already, but I'm trying my best here. At 34 of DeMar DeRozan, I learned that people really respect DeMar DeRozan's game. He's an amazing player, but I feel like he had a Julius Randle type of season. So Julius Randle won Most Improved Player last season, if you're not keeping up with basketball. That whole season, I was like, he's not good. Like, every time I watch him play, every time people were hyping him up, I'm like, he's not a good player. I've watched him play on the Pelicans. He's not good at basketball. Like, not good at basketball, but, not like a all-star, not a Most Improved Player. Like, this is a fluke season. Even, in the playoffs, we saw it was a fluke season. I said it's going to be a fluke season. People were saying Julius Randle's going to be good. He's going to bounce back next season. They were the 4 seed, and they didn't make the playoffs. So, I feel like that was this type of season, although definitely better than Julius Randle, but not like his norm anymore. He's still going to be a good player, but All-NBA second team is never going to happen again for him. At 33, I have Jamal Murray. I love Jamal Murray. I'm a huge Jamal Murray fan. We didn't need to get into the bubble was amazing. Those 50-point games. His offensive upside, not upside, he's already there. His offensive capability is just ridiculous. I think that you have to have him higher than all these other players. A guard who can create that many shots for himself and for others is just great. 32, I have Shea. Shea was in the top percentile of finishing. Was it finishing or scoring? One of those two, but either one is really impressive. Shea is just an amazing player. He's a bucket getter. Even with a bad Oklahoma City's team, they don't finish the plays all the time. He doesn't have the best spacing with them. He still looks like an all-star. I think he's going to be an all-star this season. Shea's one of the best young players in the NBA, and it's hard to deny that. At 31, I have Darius Garland. So I meant to say largest, not smallest. But anyways, Darius Garland. I love Darius Garland's game. I really love a lot of the players' games at this point in the list. But Darius Garland is so smooth. He's a smooth operator, great playmaker, great shot maker, great finisher. There's nothing he really doesn't have offensively. Obviously, he could be better defensively, but when you're offensive engine as a point guard, your defense is not that important to me. And because he is offensive engine, he's amazing. I think he's going to climb up this chart this season and be top 20 in my opinion. But as of right now, 31 is where he's at. At 30, I have Chris Middleton. So Chris Middleton, I have some more mixed feelings about him because a lot of the people I just named are 1 options. But Chris Middleton is not. He's a 2 option. Except when you're an elite 2 option like he is, you're higher than them. He can maybe be a 1 option on a low playoff team, not a championship team. But I believe his 2 option is so amazing. His shot making. He's a 3-and-D player who can also make his own shot. It's really impressive. And I think 30 feels kind of low for him, but that's where he is. At 29, Rudy Gobert. I'm higher on Rudy Gobert than a lot of people are, if I'm being honest with you. I think a lot of his defensive miscues were because of his team didn't have good perimeter defenders. So he had to make up everything in the NBA. Every time they got blown by, he had to either stay in the corner or he had to come down the paint and contest it, and they passed out, and this guy just starts hitting it from 3. Like Maxi Kleber did. It wasn't Rudy Gobert's fault. It was Donovan Mitchell for letting Jalen Brunson run right past him. But I digress. He's definitely 29, 3 defensive players of the years. I think Timbers are going to be the 1 seed this season. I'm really high on him and the team. At 28, I have LaMelo Ball. So, LaMelo is better than Gobert, in my opinion. Especially since I'm predicting it from next season, whoever they take on my team. I take him over on my team. He's an offensive engine. His playmaking is amazing. He's a tall guard, 6'8". His finishing is the only issue. If he gets more aggressive, oh my god. His half-court offense is going to be ridiculous. He can already shoot. He can rebound. I just love everything about LaMelo's game. And he gets the crowd into it. He gets his teammates hype. His teammates run the floor more because they know he's going to throw some flashy pass. They run the plays better because they know he's going to get it to them. So I like that he can also be a leader. He can get this team to play better without him getting the stat. Just like a mindset of, no, you might get the ball. Might get a highlight play from LaMelo Ball. Not just makes the team play better as a whole. I think that's an underrated part of a player. Making other players on the team want to be really engaged. That doesn't always show up in the stat sheet. And at 27, the last of tier 4, Anthony Edwards. I think Anthony Edwards can be a superstar. What he did in the playoffs, I think it's going to be in the regular season. Similar to how Ja turned up against the Jazz 2 seasons ago, right before he had a great season this year and won Most Improved Player. And it's going to be Anthony Edwards, I'm being honest. He has upside of a great defender, a great scorer, and I think he's a bit underrated. As people take LaMelo over him, LaMelo's good, but Anthony Edwards is great. And, well, they're in the same tier, so clearly that was just for dramatic effect. But that's the tier of tier 4. Alright, tier 3. Tier 3 is actually not the shortest tier. The shortest tier is tier 2. But anyways, the start of tier 3 I have Bam Adebayo. Personally, I believe Bam could have been a lot better. Like the season, was it last? That's my like. I can't think it was last season or 2 seasons ago. We had a game against the Nets where we had 40 points. He was hitting every mid-range shot. Bam, when he hits mid-range, whew, man, like I still think he could be really good offensively. But right now, with what we've seen, he's 26. He's an elite level defender. He's really good on offense, although he's not great. He's a great play finisher, a great playmaker. And when he shoots the mid-range, he's pretty good at it. He can't shoot threes as much. I hope he's working on that this offseason. If he has a 3-ball, he can definitely be a bit higher, but he still can check 1 through 5. Maybe not like super effectively at that 1, but definitely better than a lot of perimeter defenders, like a lot of point guards. So I think he's definitely up there. I think for 25, I have Brandon Ingram. Now, I'm really big on Brandon Ingram, higher than a lot of people. Like I said, Brandon Ingram was better than DeMar DeRozan in a TikTok I made, and people didn't like that take at all. And I think the thing is, I don't know. I think Ingram's a better player. He's a better scorer in my opinion, although DeRozan has a higher like volume. I think Brandon Ingram's a better scorer. He's a better playmaker. He's a better defender. He's a good rebounder. Like, it's nothing that Ingram can't do. I think Ingram can be a one option on a championship team legitimately, or some of these other players down here have the numbers and they have the offensive capability, but I don't think they can be number 1 option for whatever reason. Maybe there be efficiency, shot selection, defense, playmaking, and leadership. They're just not what I think Brandon Ingram is, when Brandon Ingram will be. At 24, I have Jaylen Brown. In my original cut of this list, I had Jaylen Brown a lot lower. Then I talked to some friends, and they convinced me he's a lot higher. And I agree. What he did this finals run was ridiculous. This playoff run was ridiculous. He has that dog in him, as you would say. He's an amazing player. And now his left hand's not great. And sometimes when he has to make a decision, it's not the best decision. But he's a bucket getter for sure. And what he did in the finals again was amazing. When Tatum was having his best performance, Brown stepped up. He get a bucket when they needed it to cut the bleeding. Even though they lost the series, but he still played great. At 23, I have Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine, Mitchell, and Booker all have similar players to me. They're a bit higher than him, though. I think LaVine's a good player. I think his defense is not great, and I don't think he can be a one option on a championship team like maybe Mitchell or Booker could potentially be. I think he needs the team tailored around him a little bit more. And obviously, at this point, unless you're nitpicking a bit, because they're all ridiculously levelly talented players. Ridiculous. I don't know what I just said. They're ridiculously talented players. So obviously, at this point, you have to nitpick. As I said, I think he's great, but he's just not better than other players. At 22, I have Pascal Siakam. Pascal Siakam's average, I think, 23, 10, and 5. That may be wrong, but I think that's about what he averaged, more or less. He's an amazing player. He's a great defender as well. He's a 1 option. He was a 2 option on a championship team, and he led that second seed Raptors to the 2 seed in the bubble. He's an amazing player, in my opinion, and I think that he's a little underappreciated. He was All-NBA player, All-NBA third team. At 21, I have Karl-Anthony Towns. Karl-Anthony Towns is, well, I keep saying this, an amazing player. All you guys are amazing players, but Karl, he can shoot threes as a big. I think it's interesting, though. He's going to be playing power forward this season. I think some of what made him so good was that he was a center, so he could blow by slower centers, and then he's on the wing. He's bringing his man out, the paint's more open. But now he's not playing center. He might have a 6'8" skinny wing on him, and the center's still in the paint because Rudy Gobert's in the paint. So I'm interested if he'll still be as effective. But going off what we've seen, he's an offensive superstar. He's amazing. His defense isn't great, but it's not bad. He has some playmaking upside as well. At 20, cracking the top 20, of Donovan Mitchell. Mitchell is an offensive superstar. His playoff numbers get better than his regular season numbers. He's amazing. We did it with Jamal Murray in the bubble, 50-point bombs. There's nothing really you can really say. He can shoot, he can dribble, he can dunk. He's not the best playmaker, he's not the best defender, but he's definitely amazing still. At number 19, now Devin Booker. I'll be honest, I'm not the hugest Devin Booker fan, but denying his talent would be extremely hypocritical and hater-like, and I'm not that much of a hater. He's an amazing player. His bucket getting is ridiculous. We did in the finals was really pretty good against the Bucks. He just didn't have his team with him, Chris Paul. But, he was really good. I think his playmaking is underrated a bit. His defense is a bit underrated. Not a great defender at all, but he's average to above average in my opinion. I think at 18, in the last of this tier, we have Kyrie Irving. Now, Kyrie, he's a good player. He's a great player even. His defense isn't great, obviously, but that's not what he's there for. He's an offensive superstar. I think what holds him back a bit for this next tier for me is his playmaking. It's not elite level, although it's still good. The rest of these players are just, excuse me, they're just better than him. I just picked them over him on my team, and that's that. So now into tier 2. All right, now we're closing in on the top 2 tiers. And in tier 2, to start off, we have Ja Morant. I believe Ja Morant's an elite level player. He's a great finisher. He's an okay 3-point shooter. He can hit it sometimes. He's a streaky Shooter. Streaky shooters, they can be on or they can be off. When he's on, he's on. When he's off, he's off. He's a great playmaker, great finisher. He's a great leader. He's a great number one option. I think they can win a championship with him as the best player, if I'm being honest with you. And I think it happens sooner rather than later. At 16, controversial, I believe, I have Zion Williamson. The thing about Zion, I think Ja's the better pick, but Zion is the better player. Ja's a better pick because he can show he can be healthy. He shows, well, that's really it, to be honest with you. He plays more games. Zion, when he plays, is better, though. 27 points and 60% shooting in the paint. He's an amazing player. I think that Zion can be a top 5 player in the NBA. I don't think Ja can be that. Or Zion can be higher, like top 1, top 3, and Ja can't be whatever that threshold would be that Zion is. I believe they're both great players, and I believe Ja will always be the better pick, at least right now. I believe Zion will generally always be the better player. At 15, I have James Harden. I believe Harden, people say I have a down season. He had a down season for James Harden. James Harden was still an amazing player this season. His career lows, a lot of people's career highs. I think he had an amazing off season. The way he looks a lot better in these scrimmages, he looks a lot better in shape. He has to get over that hamstring injury from the Nets season. He's still dealing with this season in the playoffs and everything. So the times like he lost a step, because he probably did lose a step. He was still dealing and rehabbing an injury. And he's going to be right this season. I think they're a threat out of the East this year. 14, I have Trae Young. Trae Young's a better offensive capable weapon right now than James Harden. I think better than everybody below him on this list. I think he led the league in total points and total assists. I think it's hard to have him any lower than this, I'll be honest. What is like Ja do better than him? Like, how would you argue that? I've seen people argue that. I think he's just a tier above the other people, and that's why he's this high. At 13, I have Paul George. Paul George is an amazing player. He has one of the smoothest games I've ever seen, one of the most complete games I've ever seen. Underrated playmaker. He's a good finisher when he wants to be. Good shooter. Like, he has everything, I'll be honest. Is he a one option? Maybe. Like, when he played for the Clippers, not when he played for the Clippers, last season against the Suns, they pushed him to 6 games, and really it could have been 7. So I think he's a great player. Maybe not a one option, maybe he is, but still better than these other people. At 12, I have Jimmy Butler. Now, wrestle with Jimmy Butler and Paul George quite a lot. And as I'm recording it, I might actually change it, because when I wrote it like a few days ago. I think they're like the same player. Obviously not skill-wise, but in terms of like who would I pick, like coin flip if I'm being honest with me. I think Paul George is obviously a better offensive player. Butler's a better defensive player, but Butler is no slouch offensively, and neither is Paul George defensively. But I think that Butler's over him, mostly due to recency bias. Although recency bias is an interesting term, because sometimes you see something that happened like recently that actually does change your opinion or does change facts. And I think we did against the Celtics this playoff run. Really, the whole playoff run just puts him above Paul George at the moment. At 11, I have AD. I think the thing about AD is that he had a bad year for him. Again, he still had a good year, but it wasn't like better statistically than a lot of these other players. So why do I have him this high? Now, part of it is I'm picking, like I mentioned earlier, I'm picking this player over this player if I'm like building a random team. Also, part of it is projecting for next season. I think he's going to have a better season. And I think even if he doesn't, you take like this elite level rim protector who can be great offensively as well. I think it's at least how I see it. Take him over those players. At 10, I have Jason Tatum. Obviously, cracking into the top 10. Jason Tatum had amazing playoff runs. He played in the finals, not amazingly, but it was reported that he's injured or suspected he's injured with a shoulder injury. He's an amazing player. He's complete offensively, in my opinion. Oh, hold on. Turnovers and his finishing wasn't amazing. And his left hand can be a little bit better, so he's not complete offensively, but he still looks amazing. Like, every player's going to have weaknesses, and obviously I'm nitpicking. Like, he's still, like, good at those things, but he's not, like, elite. And when you get to the top 10, you have to, like, differentiate it somehow. So I have to pick at some holes that maybe aren't as big as I'm making them seem in this video. And 9, I have Damian Lillard. This is the last player in Tier 2. I think everybody in Tier 1 has an argument for best player in the league. Well, I don't think Dame or Tatum does. I think Dame is great. He played this season injured. It was a stretch of the season where he was playing bad. He was injured. He took a few days off to like rehab it. Then he came back and he was on fire. Then he just decided to get the surgery. So I think Dame is still in there. Like, Dame is amazing. I know he shouldn't be disrespected like this. He's going to be great when he comes back this season. And I believe he's a top 10 player, top 9 player in the NBA. Now it's time to get to Tier 1. All right, the big guy on top, the Tier 1 players. Now, before we get into the ranking, as I briefly mentioned in Tier 2, all these players I think you could argue the best player in the NBA. Now, some of them have stronger arguments than others, but all 8 of them have legitimate arguments. Number 8, I have Kawhi Leonard, the Demon, the Claw. Amazing offensively, great defensively as well. He can dribble, play make, shoot, dribble. I already said dribble. Shoot, finish, score, mid-range, pull-up, hezzy, anything. He's amazing. But he is number 8 for a reason. I take the other people above him for different things. I'd say, I'll talk. I don't have to explain it that in detail, but yeah, he's number 8. At 7, I have Joel Embiid. I think Embiid is a bit underappreciated. Maybe even for me, I have him at 7, and I have Jokic's. People who argue they're like similar tier of players, like similar, like they're right neck and neck. I have Jokic a bit higher than him. I think what Embiid does offensively is amazing, and especially defensively. Like he shows up big games, shows up in the playoffs. He had a game winner against the Raptors, I believe. Like, he's a great player. He's arguably the best player in the NBA. That's why I have him in tier 1. Like I have him as that superstar of superstars, like the other players in this list. I'm a really big fan of him. I think Philly has a good chance to win to win the East this year. I mentioned that talking about James Harden as well. At number 6, I have Kevin Durant. I think Kevin Durant can't be any higher. The other 5 players, I don't think he has an argument over. Like I said, they all have an argument, best player in the NBA, but I say argument, not like a legitimate claim. Like you could argue Kevin Durant, but I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't take that take extremely seriously. Him and Embiid, I think you could even switch, but I think KD's there. He's still a great player. Like, he's a great scorer. He's a bucket getter, and people say he's like super like bag deep. His bag's pretty like decently deep, I assume, but really he just has a move that people can't guard, which is like, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. That's amazing. Like imagine just having to sweep through, dribble, midi, sweep through, dribble, 3, hezzy, pull up. Like that's not a super deep bag, but it's so unguardable. He doesn't need to do what Kyrie Irving does or what Curry does, like multiple dribbles and everything. Like he's just so good at what he does, like with 1 dribble or 2 dribbles. I think that's really underappreciated. If I would have LeBron James, I think LeBron is over Kevin Durant. He's arguably a better scorer right now after what he did this season. He averaged 30 points a game, I believe. He's a better playmaker. Now, if you think he's actually a better scorer, debatable, because often people who like DeMar DeRozan averaged like 28 points, and he's like at 35. So obviously PPG doesn't matter. But I think LeBron and KD are similar like level players at this point in the career. But I still take LeBron because his playmaking upside. Not upside. I keep saying that. His playmaking ability, and he's a great scorer as well. Number 4, I have Luka Doncic. I think Luka over LeBron at this point is not that bad of a take. I think 2 years ago you could say it was LeBron, and it was LeBron. But right now it's Luka Doncic after this playoff run. He's a great offensive player. He's an offensive engine, offensive superstar. He's already a Hall of Famer because of his EuroLeague career. Winning against the Warriors was really impressive. Pushing them to 5 games with the roster how he had, like, we're not playing great. And he almost came back in Game 5 too if you watched it, just because of him. At 3, I have Stephen Curry. I think Curry and Luka are like a flip-flop type of deal right now. I think Curry's an amazing player. What he did in the finals run, that Game 4, that Game 6, he's just amazing. I think he's a bit underappreciated, which is weird to say because people say he has 1 Finals MVP. He should have 2 anyways, and he still have 25 points per game in the final for his career. And that's pretty ridiculous. He's an off-ball playmaking genius. He's an on-ball playmaking genius, which is an underrated part. He's a good defender, which people don't think he is. Obviously, the greatest shooter of all time. But just saying he's the greatest shooter of all time is like underplaying his ability. Like, he's a great finisher, statistically and visually. He's a great playmaker. I know I just mentioned that, but people don't realize that he's great in more than just shooting. And more than just 3-point shooting as well, like mid-range shooting, free throw shooting, off the dribble shooting, catch and shoot shooting. Like, he's just amazing at basketball. At 2, I have Jokic. Again, people are lower on Jokic than I am. Jokic pulling that 6th seed, that team to the 6th seed, is insane. And when the games he played, the win percentage was of a 4 seed. So he would have been in a top seeding in the West without Murray and Michael Porter Jr. in the games he played. Obviously, the games he didn't play, they lost a bit more because they didn't have like a number 2 player in the league. I think that this season with Murray and MPJ, they can be a lot better. And again, I think he's underappreciated. Back to like MVP, he's disrespected. People say that his numbers are just numbers, and I think sometimes that's true. In this case, I don't think it's true. And he's not even a bad defender, what people say he is. Like, he's not great, but he's not horrible. And 1, the best player in the league, you probably would have guessed it already, is Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's the best 2-way player in the NBA, best player in the NBA, amazing scorer, a good playmaker, great rebounder, great defender, great leader. I think you want to have him on his team over everybody else at the moment in the NBA, and I don't think that's that debatable. But that's the end of my list, all 50 players. If you like it, or if you don't like it, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, and give me your top 10. Timing out 50 is pretty ridiculous of me to ask of you. Have a great day.